Hey everybody, Min here. Welcome back to Your House Fitness. Today, we're going to go over the Sumo Deadlift on a ton of different variations. I'm going to start off on the barbell variant, and then I'll break it down towards the kettlebell and the dumbbell, and there may be some details between the different exercises, but thankfully the main mechanic is the exact same. What is a Sumo Deadlift though is kind of important. Typically, when people do a deadlift, they have their feet at hip width, their hands at shoulder width, and it'll be outside of their legs. When you're doing a sumo deadlift, it's the opposite. You're going to look like a sumo wrestler where they have a very wide stance and they have their hands nice and low. This applies to the equipment we're going to use. So I'm going to make sure when I approach this barbell, I have my feet outside of my hands. How wide? Mostly depends on your flexibility. Some people I've seen have their toes all the way up to the plates, and other people, they have a very narrow sumo stance. This is completely based off how you feel and how flexible you are, and those factors will change depending on how athletic you are or how fit you may be. We're going to go over the basic variations. So what I look for in a sumo deadlift is stacked limbs. So when I go down, I want to make sure my feet and my knees are above each other. As I said, you can be a little wider or a little narrow, but I think being stacked is just a great place to start. And if this feels uncomfortable for you, play around with your stance, come in narrow, go out wide, whatever it may be. From here on out, the mechanic is the same as a hinge. So all we gotta do is make sure we have our hip crease. If you don't know where your hip crease is, put your hands right here in your hips. I'll make a letter C, I'll cup it, and if I lift my knees, I'll find out where my hip crease is. Once I find my hip crease, all I gotta do is push this back. I'm gonna basically bring my butt to the wall behind me, like so, okay? If you don't displace your hips backwards, you'll only fall forwards and you'll eventually lose your balance. As you can see, I'm going on my toes, and this is a very rounded position for my back. But if I hip hinge, I'll keep it in the hip musculature, which is much stronger than just our lumbar. So I'm just going to do that now in a sumo stance. So I'm going to have that stacked position where my feet's over my knees. I'm going to hip hinge back, and when my hands get to knee level, I'll bend my knees until I can grasp the barbell comfortably. Try not to sit on the barbell. See, I'm just resting on it. This is going to make the pull much harder because then I got to untangle myself and then start from a very compromised position. So, nice wide stance, hands underneath me, hip hinge till knee level, bend your knees. Once you got the grip, you're going to push your legs through the floor, and when the bar gets to knee level, you're going to push your hips forward. How I bring it down is the same way I set up. I go hips back. When hands are on knee level, I bend my knees. Very simple. I personally like to reset. You can touch and go. That's more based off what you want out of your training. So I'm going to fully reset, take my full brace, hip hinge back, bend my knees, grip, push, and extend the hips. Let's do 3 more. Boom. The nice part about sumo deadlift is it keeps the back in a more vertical position. So you end up working more of your adductors and your quadriceps as opposed to purely or mostly hitting your glutes and your hamstrings and erectors. It's mostly the same musculature, don't get me wrong, but there are some subtle changes you can have. Well, I'm going to move now the barbell off to the side, and we're going to go to the kettlebell. All right. So there's a few ways to do the kettlebell version. You can have 2 kettlebells, like so. And then when I hip hinge down, I'm going to grip it like so. Hang on, even wait, hold on. There we go. Now we got the same load. So from here, when I approach the kettlebell, I want to make sure my shoelace is lined up with the center of the kettlebell. This will make sure I'm over the weight. If I don't do that, let me turn this around. Let's say I start with my toes there. I'm going to be more in a stiff leg deadlift position. Not wrong, but not a sumo deadlift. So let's get over the weight. You can then widen out, hip hinge, so your hands are at knee level, bend the knees, grip it tight, push your legs, extend your hips. 2 and 3. If you only got 1 kettlebell, that's fine as well. Let's put this to the side. If you got 1 kettlebell, this is much easier. Line up the handle with your shoelace. You'll have a little bit more clearance between your legs. You can just do the exact same thing. Try to focus on the cues, so hip hinge back, bend the knees, push the legs, extend the hips. Last version I'm going to show is with the dumbbell, so let's put this to the side. I'm going to grab a little bit of a bigger dumbbell. With this one, you can grab it vertically. I actually prefer this because it's a lot closer to the range of motion you'll have on a deadlift. I'm going to make some dumbbells have a little line in the center. I usually line that up with my shoelace. So I get myself on the line. My legs are going to be turned out a little bit. I hip hinge. I bend my knees. I just do the exact same thing. One more. Excellent. Make sure you're always bracing your core, and make sure to take your time when you're doing this. You don't have to rush and bang out your repetitions, okay? Well, those are free versions of a sumo deadlift. They're great to try. I recommend you try them all. See which one you like. Have a great day.